So after velocity, here comes average velocity. Yes, so as we have discussed earlier about average speed, in the same manner, average velocity will also come here. So what is it actually? The velocity of a body changes due to the change in its speed or in a direction or in both. Okay, it might change its speed or the direction of the object. Here is one example for you. Okay, let us discuss this one first. Then I will tell you what is it actually. Okay, so let's suppose a car that is moving in an east direction. Okay, as you can see, there is north, south, west and east. So considering whenever you are having such kind of question, you can roughly draw this diagram at your notebook also. Okay, so firstly it was driving in the east direction. Fine. So it has a velocity of 10 meter per second because we are mentioning speed also. We are mentioning direction also, right? Because it is moving in its east direction. So we can say that velocity here is 10 meter per second and speed is also 10 meter per second, right? Okay, now if it is now turning towards the south direction, again the velocity here will be 0 meter per second. Why? Because we are only considering the east direction. We are only discussing about east direction and car is not moving in east direction right now. It is moving in downward direction. So we can say that no velocity is mentioned here. If we are talking about that the car is moving in south direction, then we can say that yes, still it has 10 meter per second speed or velocity. But earlier we have already mentioned that we are discussing about east direction. So 0 velocity in direction of speed, but 10 meter per second velocity in direction of south also. But here because east, so it is 0, but still speed is 10 meter per second. Okay, now car is moving in the west direction and you know that the east direction and opposite of east is west. Right? So we can say that now the velocity for the car is minus 10 meter per second because direction east is taken as positive. So west is automatically become negative direction now. Okay, so that is the direction method, that if you are considering one direction as positive, the other direction opposite to it will be considered as negative, but north and south is nothing for it right now. And in speed part, remember students, average speed, whatever we have discussed, that is average speed, you had a formula of total distance upon total time. Yes, it was the formula for average speed. Here, in case of average velocity, you are going to see what kind of formula we are having. So yes, before moving towards the formula for average velocity, let us discuss why actually we are learning this thing. Okay, the same reason why we have learned about average speed is this. Supposing you are riding a bicycle and you are asked what was your speed. So your speed was not fixed for each and every particular point. Okay, so you have to give an idea that I am having the total traveling distance with this average speed. Okay, not fixed speed, that is average, that minimum this kind of speed I am having. So in same case, average velocity, we are having the velocity differences. It might be uniform difference or non-uniform difference. Uniform differences are those differences which are changing with a particular interval of time and the change is similar. If it is changing for one, then again one changing, 1 kilometer change, 1 kilometer change, and for a particular time. And in case non-uniform, it might be 1 for 1 hour, 2 for 1 hour, 3 for 1 hour, and 4 for 1 hour again. Okay, so this is why we are using this average velocity, because according to the time, proper interval of time, the speed or velocity is going to be changed. Okay, so now the formula for average velocity is first total displacement divided by total time. The same thing that we have seen in speed case also, total distance upon total time. So here total displacement upon total time. So yes, that was the formula for average velocity, that is total displacement upon total time. But in case of uniform changing of velocity, for uniform changing of velocity, your formula will be calculated as velocity, average velocity, that is initial velocity plus final velocity divided by 2. And similarly, in case of speed also, we were having this formula that initial speed plus final speed divided by 2, and here also we are having the same formula, initial velocity plus final velocity divided by 2. This is why we are having divided by 2, because there are two terms and we need to find the average between these two. That is, firstly, if you have started with 0 and you are ending with some final velocity here, so the average one part will be the mean part of these two values. Or you could start it with any kind of initial velocity. It is not necessary that every object starts with 0 only. Okay, it maybe starts from some particular speed or velocity. From there, you may jump high to final velocity. So then also you can easily calculate by adding these two values and divided by 2. So here, if we want to define it in a compact formula, like we are not going to write it again now, like initial velocity plus final velocity divided by 2, but we need a short trick for that and we need to write in a formula manner also. Okay, so how we can write? We can take the initial velocity as u, final velocity as v. Okay, so u plus v will gives divided by 2 will gives you the average velocity. And students, in physics we always keep u as initial velocity and v as final velocity. Even if you are in +1, if you jump to like you are reading this topic in +1, +2 also, you are having u as initial velocity only and v as final velocity only. Okay, so in case of this thing, if we need to calculate the earlier example that a car is moving in east direction and then south direction and again in west direction. So the velocity, you know that earlier we were considering it as +10 meter per second because we are talking about east direction right now, and velocity in south is 0 and west direction is -10. So if we want to calculate this thing, average velocity for this car, so what average velocity we are going to have? Initial velocity is +10. Yes, because it is moving in direction east. And final velocity plus final velocity. So final velocity is -10 and divided by 2. Yes. So +10 -10 will gives you 0 and 0 divided by something will gives you 0 only. So 0 meter per second is the average velocity. See how far this car has been running. Okay, and still if someone is going to ask what was your average velocity? Okay, so this car is going to answer that my average velocity is 0 meter per second because I have recovered the distance that I have traveled earlier in the opposite direction. So my positive direction is cancelled out by negative direction. So average velocity is 0, but average speed is not going to be 0.